Before the name, before the stadium lights, before the whispers of scouts and dreams of glory, there was only a boy named EZEQUIEL Fernandez. He didn't grow up in privilege. There were no golden gates or private coaches, only narrow sidewalks, concrete walls echoing the thud of a worn-out football, and a mother's voice calling him back in as the sky turned dark. In the working-class corners of Buenos Aires, EZEQUIEL wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing the ball because it was the only thing that made sense. The city was loud, chaotic, but when he touched the ball, everything went silent. He played barefoot at first, scraped knees, hands covered in dust, the shirt clinging to his skin with sweat and dreams. Others saw a child playing, but inside, he was building a language, one where every touch meant something, where every wall was a teammate, where losing meant staying after everyone left, just to try again. Sometimes they didn't have lunch, but he had a ball, and that ball was everything.
"The ball taught me to breathe,"
he once said quietly.
"When life got hard, I just went back to the streets."
When he was 10, he got the call. Boca Juniors, the Dream Academy. The badge that had lived in his imagination now lived on his chest, but he didn't celebrate, not yet, because in his mind, it was never about getting in. It was about staying in, surviving, proving that a kid from nowhere could belong on a field of legends. Talent opens the door, but it doesn't keep it open. At Boca Juniors, everything changed. The streets were gone. Now, the pitch was trimmed like a museum floor. The boots were clean. The eyes around him, sharper, colder. Equi felt it from day one. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the strongest. And in those first weeks, he wasn't the favorite. There were days he didn't touch the ball in training, days when coaches looked the other way, nights when he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering,
"What if I'm just not enough?"
Other kids had agents, connections, sponsors. He had his silence, and a pair of boots worn down by persistence. He fell behind. An ankle injury took him out for weeks. Then came the whispers.
"He's too quiet, too small for midfield. Maybe not Boca material."
The hardest part wasn't the pain, it was the invisible. The doubt that crawled into his chest. The voice that said,
"Quit now, no one will notice."
But Equi didn't. Instead, he woke up earlier, stayed longer, watched tapes alone in the dark. He didn't speak much, but he listened. Every correction, every critique, every harsh word, he used them, like bricks, to build something.
"Pain isn't the enemy,"
he later told a teammate.
"Indifference is."
He stopped waiting for permission to shine. He started to own the silence, to speak with tackles, to answer with positioning, to let the ball do the talking. And slowly, they started to notice. Not because he was flashy, but because he was unbreakable. Obstacles didn't end, but they no longer defined him. They became fuel, the kind that only burns inside those who've already walked through darkness, and kept going anyway. It started small, a substitution in a meaningless game. 15 minutes, no goal, no assist, just hustle, just grit. But for Equi, it was everything. Because after all the years, all the sweat, all the lonely mornings, he was finally on the field. He stood under the stadium lights, heart pounding like a drum, the badge of Boca pressing against his chest like a weight and a promise. Every touch felt heavy. Every second was a test, but he passed, not by dazzling, but by enduring. He didn't need headlines. He needed a second chance, and he earned it. Then came the loan. Club Atlético Tigre. For many, a step down. For Equi, a step into the fire. No longer the kid in the academy, now the one expected to deliver. Every minute mattered, and he made them count. That season, he transformed. His tackles became sharper, his distribution cleaner, his confidence louder, without speaking a word. Tigre gave him space, and he filled it with maturity. When he returned to Boca, he wasn't the same boy. He was a man with scars, minutes, and purpose. The club saw it too. He became essential. Midfield anchor, link between chaos and control, the one who cleaned the mess, set the rhythm, and never hid. And then came the Copa Libertadores. Each match, more pressure, each moment, heavier. But he never blinked, never broke. And when they reached the final, a reporter asked him,
"How did you get here?"
He looked down, smiled, and answered,
We knew the greatness we carried and the glory we pursued.
Those weren't just words. They were a mirror, reflecting years of unseen labor. In that moment, Equi wasn't just a role player. He was a pillar, a symbol of persistence in a world obsessed with shortcuts. Recognition came, not with trophies, but with respect, the kind that only comes when people finally see what you always knew was there. New country, new flag, same fire. When he stepped onto the Olympic stage in Paris 2024, it hit him like a wave. The badge on his chest now bore a sun, a flag, a nation. The crowd wasn't chanting his name, but inside, he heard it anyway.
Equi, juega con el corazón.
The voice of his father, replaying through the years like a faithful echo. And when the whistle blew, he didn't hesitate. He pressed like it was a final, moved the ball like it was life, fought for every meter like it was home. Then, the goal. A midfield interception, a give and go, and a curling finish against a rock that rippled the net and silenced critics. He didn't celebrate like a star. He celebrated like a survivor, a quiet fist pump, eyes to the sky. For him, it wasn't about headlines. It was about justifying the journey. That performance turned heads, scouts, analysts, legends. They began asking, who is this Equi Fernandez? The answer wasn't on paper. It was in the minutes, the bruises, the decisions made when no one was watching. Then came the offer, Alcadia, a new land, a new league, a leap into the unknown. Some questioned the move, others doubted the choice. But Equi, he packed his boots, his silence, his hunger. He wasn't chasing lights, he was chasing growth.
Every time I leave a place,
He said in a rare interview,
I try to leave a better version of myself behind.
Saudi Arabia was more than money. It was a test. Different tactics, different climate, different pressure. And again, he didn't complain. He adapted. He listened. He fought his way into the lineup with the same blueprint he'd followed since childhood. Work hard, speak little, prove everything. He didn't need validation. He had purpose, and that purpose translated across borders. Because true warriors don't fear change. They turn it into fuel. He's only in his early 20s, but Equi Fernandez has lived 1,000 football lives, from concrete alleys to Olympic stadiums, from forgotten youth drills to wearing Argentina's colors, from invisible to indispensable. But what sets him apart isn't his passing, or his stamina, or his discipline. It's what he chooses not to do. He doesn't scream for attention. He doesn't chase clout. He doesn't fight for spotlight. He walks in silence and lets his game speak in full volume. And in a world where noise is cheap, EZEQUIEL Fernandez is proof that humility can still be powerful, that you don't have to be flashy to be feared, that your journey doesn't need validation from others. It needs commitment from you. He once said,
Don't wait for someone to believe in you. Believe first, and they'll catch up later.
That is the gospel of Equi, not the trophies, not the goals, but the blueprint. The reminder that football is not about tricks, it's about truth. When you fail, do you hide, or do you show up the next day earlier than before? When nobody claps, do you give up, or do you keep playing, knowing that your worth isn't measured by applause? To every young player watching this, you don't need to be famous today. You don't need thousands of followers. You don't need the latest boots or viral clips. What you need is what Equi had, a vision in your head, a fire in your chest, and the courage to keep going when nobody's looking. Not in headlines, but in the hard days, the unseen days, the days you show up anyway.